Okay, great pleasure to invite Siobhan Haughey onto the program. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Now, listen, just to catch us up with where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I am in Flagstaff, Arizona, in the US for altitude training camp. We're here for 3 weeks, and this is our second week. And yeah, training's been pretty hard, but it's been going well. And then after this training camp, we'll go to US Open.
Oh, okay, nice. Um, just in terms of the training camp, who's with you on the camp?
Yeah, so Tom Rushton's our coach,
Uh-huh.
and we have a few Israeli swimmers, Anastasia Gobenko, and then like a few swimmers from Hong Kong and a swimmer from Philippines. So it's like we mainly swim the 100 and 200. So it's a good group of people.
Nice. Now, when it comes to your training, we'll just talk about it since you're in the middle of it right now, and something like
Mhm.
a training camp at altitude. What type of work are you doing per week? What's the goals and outcome of the camp while you're there?
Yeah, so I think we do a lot of altitude training camps, especially at the beginning of the year, just to get our fitness level
Mhm.
in good shape. And this week we have, I think, 62K. So we just did a 7.5K practice this morning.
Mm.
And yeah, so I think the structure of the training is pretty much the same as we're at in sea level. So it's 10 sessions per week plus 3 gym sessions. And then on top of that, we do some other activities like spin class, Pilates, yoga, climbing, whatever everyone wants. And we like to do a training camp followed by a competition so then we can really see how we respond to altitude camps. Um, and yeah, I think at this camp, our number one focus is to get our fitness level, and then number two is to just work on like a little bit of race pace, race speed.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, listen, by no means do I mean this as an insult in any way. You're not at the beginning of your career. You're an experienced swimmer, and you're heading into Paris. So, for someone that's been through seasons of work and gone to Olympic competitions, world championships in the past, and then heading into an Olympic Games like this, how do you make gains? Where do you find improvement for you right now?
Yeah, I think the important thing is to really look at my race videos and then find every possible thing that I can work on. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to make huge drastic changes. It's all about the small details. And luckily, in the past 2 months, I've had a ton of racing from Worlds, Asian Games to World Cup. So we have a lot of data and information about my racing and what we need to work on. So we really look at those information and see what we can do in the next 8 months to improve and to so that I can get to where I want to be in Paris.
Yeah, outstanding. Well, you had an incredible run, like you said, the past few months, going to Worlds, going to the Asian Games. You did phenomenally there, and posting some world best times this year. You know, you're the fastest person on paper right now. How does that feel? Just to know that kind of you're the one that everybody's looking at as the fastest in the world.
I actually don't think I don't see it that way. I like to go into big meets as the underdog, even though sometimes I may not be. But um, it's good that I'm swimming fast in season. But at the end of the day, all that matters is how I do at the big meets. So I think it gives me a lot of confidence going into these meets, but also like, just because I swim fast now, it doesn't mean I'm gonna swim fast or faster in a few months' time. So I think, um, yeah, I don't look too like I don't take it too seriously, I think.
Mm. I like that though, what you said there about the underdog mentality. Even though you might not be the underdog on paper, you might be the fastest person in the world. How do you justify that in your head in terms of being able to maintain that mentality of saying, no, no, I'm the one who's chasing here. I've got more to do. I've got to go and prove to whoever you're proving it to, whatever it is, that underdog mentality. How do you justify that in your head?
Honestly, I really don't think too much when it comes to racing. I know that if I work hard every day and I focus on what I have to do at the end of the day, when it comes to the big meets, the results will speak for itself. Um, and I've had so many years of racing experience to know that if I go into a meet feeling too nervous, then I actually underperform. So I just try to stay as relaxed as possible and just don't think too much and
Hmm.
just try to enjoy and have fun when I'm at the meet.
It's a really good message, actually. I was just talking to somebody that's headed into kind of a mid-season meet in college last night, and we were saying the same things basically. It was just like, don't think too much, just enjoy it. You use this as a celebration of all the hard work that you've done. And you're certainly a fine example of that for a lot of people. In terms of being a role model now, like you're the only swimmer in history in Hong Kong who's gone on to win multiple medals at the Olympics in swimming. What's it like to be a role model back in your home country?
Yeah, I think it's such an honor, because to me, I feel like I'm just doing what I love every day, training, competing, but then I didn't expect that I have such a big impact to people in Hong Kong, especially young athletes or young people. So I feel I feel really honored that they think such a great role model, and I try to do my best and let them know that hard work pays off. And yeah, sometimes you don't get the results that you want, but you just have to keep going um, and eventually you'll get there. So hopefully, I can inspire even more people in Hong Kong, or just to follow their dreams, or even just to play sports, because in Hong Kong, I think we still have this um, culture of where we focus a lot more on education than
Mm,
sports. So then
mm.
a lot of people, maybe when they go to high school, they just stop doing sports. So I want people to know that you can do both. Like, you can be a student athlete and excel in both of them. So you don't have to pick one or the other.
How was that for you? I imagine you grew up in Hong Kong and then came to America on scholarship. Is that correct?
Yes. Hmm.
So how did
So
you kind of make that transition?
yeah, so in high school, I knew that I wanted to study in the US because I knew that was somewhere where I can train and study at the same time. And I ended up going to the University of Michigan, which I loved. I had the best 4 years there. And I would say at the beginning it was pretty hard because I went from training 7 times a week back home to going to 10 sessions a week plus weights. So the training load was a lot. Um, but school was kind of easy for me. But luckily I had really good teammates and coaches, and I think they helped make that transition a little easier. It did take a few months, but after that, once you get into the rhythm, it's it's a little bit more manageable. And
Mm.
and I knew going into the US that I wanted to do well in both. So I always had that goal in mind, and just try to make that happen.
And when you go from a situation like going from Hong Kong to the US and being in an environment like Michigan and having those competitions and having the people in practice who are pushing you and having the coaching staff around you, and it's a big team, right? It's a huge group of people, and there's so much going on that there's always somebody to push you, whether that be on the women's team or the men's team. There's always someone there that can push you. What was your decision to then, after college, kind of leave that environment and go back to Hong Kong and know that you could be successful there as well?
Yeah, so what I liked about Michigan was that we had such a big group. So then at every practice, someone is there to challenge you and to, make you swim faster. Um, and after I graduated in 2019. And after that, I had the intention of staying until Tokyo Olympics. But
Mm,
then because of COVID, pools weren't open, and I was out of the pool for, I think, 2 to 3 months. And I knew that the pool in Hong Kong, at our national training center, was open. So then I decided to just pack my bags and move back to Hong Kong. And at that point, I was still training under my then Michigan coach, Rick Bishop. So every day he
Mm,
was sending me workouts. So we were doing like a long distance coaching all the way till Tokyo.
mm,
And it worked out really well. So I think a few of us who were studying or training in the US at that time came back to Hong Kong. So now we had a good group of people. Um, and so I still get that same competitive training environment where, guys and girls were pushing me in training. Um, so yeah, and then after Tokyo, we had ISL and all these different meets. And then I met Tom Rushton. And then a few months later, I decided to start training with him.
mm. I love it. I love the progression there. And a good friend of mine who set up this podcast for me, Sonny Trigg, he spent a little bit of time with you as well. Um,
Yep.
he tells me a couple of little insights about you. I want to get your opinion on what he thinks about you. But he tells me that you hate being beaten in practice. Is that correct?
No, that's not really true. I mean, I mainly train with guys, so it's inevitable that the guys would beat me. But I think it's a win-win situation for me because if the guys beat me in training, that's okay. But if I beat them, then it's a win for me. Um, but no, I think it's good to practice that in training because in a race, you know, you never know who's gonna come from behind, or you always want to chase down whoever's in front of you. So
Right.
um, it's not like I hate getting beaten, but if I can beat someone, I'll do it.
He does say that. He said you're very competitive in practice, and he said that you have very high standards for yourself too. Like you have goals for each practice, and you have kind of these possible outcomes that you want from the practice. And if you don't meet those, you kind of hard on yourself in that sense. Like you can want to come back and be better the next session. Is that true?
I think so. I do agree that I have very high standards on myself,
Mm,
whether
right.
it's in training or in life. But that's just who I am because I like to do things as best as possible.
Mm,
And I think it's good to go into each practice session having a goal or like a motive so then you know what you're going to focus on in each training session. Whether it's like something technique based or time based. And it just gives you extra little motivation when you feel like giving up during a session.
Tell me this: how do you balance the speed and the requirements of the 100 freestyle, and maybe even down to the 50 freestyle, because you swim a real good 50 too, and then kind of the endurance side and kind of the pacing of the 200? How do you balance those in practice?
I think it's a funny thing because I actually don't really train for the 150 like everyone
Mm,
else thinks. Our training is mainly focused in the 200. And I'd say as a 200 swimmer, I swim a lot of yardage compared to other people. Um, that's why I think it helps my 100. Um, yeah, we do a lot of 200 pace training in our training, and maybe once a week we do some speed endurance. But even our speed 100 pace sets are it's speed work, but there's endurance component to it. Like we would
mm,
do something like 3 rounds of 2025s on 30. It's kind of like US RPT, but
right.
there's still like an endurance component to it.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think I don't know, it works out for me, and I don't know how I could swim a 50 with this kind of training, but, it just works, I guess.
And what about the gym? You obviously got to be strong to swim fast in the pool these
Mhm.
days, and women are definitely getting stronger. What's your gym look like?
Yeah, I actually don't do anything too crazy in the gym. I do the main muscle groups and the main swimmers exercise, like squats, pull-ups, some
Mhm.
rows, some bench press. Nothing too, creative, I guess, just because we do a lot of swimming in the pool, so then it's nice to have like I don't want to overdo it in the gym, but we also do some power work and speed because we're not doing too much of that in the pool.
Mm. So in terms, I guess, from what I'm getting from you is you're fully focused on the 200 and the 100 and the 50, just byproducts of that. But you just did post the fastest time in the world in the 100 freestyle this year, and you're so close to that 51. Is there anything that kind of pushes you into wanting to focus more on the 100?
Not really. I think with the training that I'm doing and it's really helping my 100, even though it's a 200 focus training. I think as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, hopefully I can keep dropping times in the 100 and 200. And it's funny because, like I said, my training is very two free focus, but I've gone a best time in every single event but the two free. From like the 50 breast to the four free, everything I swim, I go a best time, but in the two free. So I'm being very patient about it, and I think my time will come. And yeah, I think my training is working right now, and we just need to fine tune some details and find ways to just get 1/10, 2/10 faster, and hopefully we'll see how fast I can go.
I like that. When I talk to Cam McAvoy, he's the same way. He's like, Brett, I'm trying to get 100th faster every day. I'm just trying to find 1/100th. I'm not trying to find a 10th or half a second. It's just 1/100th. So yeah, that mentality is across the board with a lot of speed swimmers these days. In terms of your 200 race strategy, you're up against some incredible athletes on the world scene, and it just seems so deep right now, especially the the women's 100 free, the women's 200 free. I mean, it just feels like anyone can get up on any particular day and have a great swim and possibly win that thing. And not taking away from the talent that's up there, but it's just so deep. What's your race strategy when it comes to the 200 free?
Yeah, I definitely think the 200 has gone a lot faster over the years. The fact that 1:53.9 doesn't even get to the podium is just
Mm.
crazy for me to think, but it just means like I have to go faster. And I think in the 200, I always have this natural speed. So I try to use that and just go out easy but strong. And I know my back end is probably not as fast as the other girls in the 200, so I've been really working on that a lot as well. Um, but yeah, I just like have a lot more control in the first 100, but also feel strong and powerful, and then really work on the third 50, and then try to hang on in the fourth 50.
Seems like that's a pretty normal strategy for a lot of people is
Mhm.
just race that last 50.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name a couple of your competitors, and maybe you can just give me one word that describes them as far as you're concerned. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's try this. Let's go with Katie Ledecky.
Goat.
Okay. Emma McKeon.
Really friendly.
Ariane Titmus.
Beast.
Good word. Sarah Sostrom.
Can I repeat the words? Another goat. Idol.
Yeah, an idol. Okay, that's even different. What about Kayla McEwen?
Do we not just do that? Oh,
Kaylee?
no, we didn't. Oh, incredible.
Yeah. She's having an incredible year too. It just seems like every time
Yeah.
she touches the water, she's close to a world record or getting one. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's some really incredible swimmers around the world right now. It's on the women's side. It's just seems like that's where a lot of the attention is on world swimming right now is just how deep the women are, right?
Yeah, and I think that's great, like, especially when a lot of these fast swims are not coming at the end of the season, but also during the season. I think it draws a lot of attention to swimming, and you can really see how the sport has changed, like, people are swimming fast all year round, and that's great, and, like, it's getting more and more competitive, but I think that's what makes it very interesting to watch.
Yeah. Um, So you have decided to go to Doha, it sounds like. So what does next year look like for you? What does 2024 look like?
Yeah, I don't think we have like a fixed schedule yet, but I know I'm definitely going to Doha. And then we're going to have uh, another altitude camp possibly in March. And then um, I would like to do the Mare Nostrum tour and maybe also Setakoli. And we are probably also doing another altitude camp somewhere between that. And yeah, I'm not sure where we're doing our staging camp before Paris yet, but hopefully somewhere nice and warm to get some sun. And then it's Paris.
Yeah. Uh, and that's exciting. Hey, would this be is this your third games?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Which one's been your favorite so far? Tokyo, I'd imagine.
Tokyo. Well, they're all very different because when
Mm,
I went to Rio, I was only 18. I didn't have a lot of international racing experience, so it was amazing that I made to semifinals. I don't think anyone in Hong Kong has ever made semis at that point, so it was it was a big deal for me and for our swim team. But then I got really nervous at semifinals and I didn't do as well. But it was still such a great experience, first Olympics. I couldn't complain. And then Tokyo was obviously amazing, 2 silvers. But then it was during COVID, so I felt like I didn't get the full Olympic experience. Uh, but it was still really such an unforgettable meet, and the support I received from the swim team and also from everyone in Hong Kong was incredible. So hopefully Paris is gonna be even better.
mm. Now you just took a week off to kind of recharge before this camp, after racing a lot. What do you like to do outside of the pool? What do you do to relax?
Yeah, I if I want to be active, I like to go on hikes, go to the beach, just swim a little bit, do some open water swimming or just chill on the beach. But I am uh, if I'm home, I like to spend more time with my family and friends, and because I travel so much, I don't get to see them that often. So when I'm home, I like to just be home and not do too much.
Yeah. I got a question for you. What do you think we're most likely to happen? Is one of these three things, which would happen first? A woman under 23 seconds in the 50 free, a woman swimming 50 point in the 100 free, or going 151 in the 200? Which one's going to happen first?
Um, I'm gonna say going 151 in the two free. I feel
Mm,
like that is because it's a little longer distance, so then the areas for improvement is a little greater than in the 50. And I don't know, looking at the progression of the two free in the past few years, it seems like people are moving very fast. So I'm not surprised if someone can go 151 in the two free.
yeah. What about the 50 point 100 freestyle for women? How do we get there? I think there's a couple of coaches around the world trying to solve that problem right now. Is it even likely within the next few years, you think?
I really don't know. I think instead of looking at it as like, how do I solve this problem? You just have to, I don't know, like make it happen and like don't think too much because there's so many different ways you can do it. You can go out, you can maybe even split it. I feel like maybe someone could do that. But
I think Molly
yeah, how
O'Callahan's
do you
trying.
yeah, well that's how she swims most of her races.
Mm.
I think yeah, I don't know, like how do you balance the speed and endurance in that? Maybe you have to train for the 200 in order to go a 50 point. Um, yeah, I guess we'll have to find out.
I believe that we're starting to see a shift in sprinting, and I think it's starting. It started with men, and I think it's we can see it in the women's side now, but I truly believe in 10 years from now, we're going to have specialists in the 50 free, then we're going to have specialists in the 100, and then we're going to have specialists in the 200. I think over the next 10 years, we're going to see more separation than someone like you who is multi-talented, who can really compete in a 50, 100, 200. I think we're moving away from that, especially on the men's side. Do you think that we're going that way on the women's side yet, or we're still too far away from that?
I think we're slowly heading that direction, probably not as prominent as in the men's side, because obviously in the men's side, you have people who only swim the 50 free.
Right, right.
But I think slowly in the women's side as well, because the 50 training versus the 200 training, it's very different. And even
Mhm.
for me, like, yes, I swim the 100 and 200, but my training is still very 200 focused. Um,
All right.
and I think if you have that top end speed and the power to do so, like, why not just focus on the 50 and just maximize your potential in that? Um, I think it might be a bit more common in freestyle than in stroke events, because I think in backstroke, fly, people are still doing, 100, 200 or 50, 100, 200. But in freestyle, definitely you can just specialize in one event if you're really good at it.
Right. I also think there's major strength component to swimming really fast and powerful, and I'm sure you've experienced that as well. When you've swum really fast, you've felt strong. In terms of the female side of things and being comfortable with strength and power, and these words that are tended to be masculine type words in the past, like how are you with, kind of just your body image and just feeling strong and powerful and kinda owning that feeling, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm an athlete, I'm a swimmer, so my job is to do whatever I possibly can to swim as fast as possible.
Mm,
So I'm not, I'm gonna do everything that can make me swim fast in the pool, if that means lifting 3 times a week, or doing other stuff. Like, I'm gonna make that happen. And so I don't know, I never thought too much about it. And I think it's just part of my job. And yeah, I don't think you have to be too concerned about it. I think society has these pressures on women and how they should look, and you know they can't be too strong and powerful. But it's 2023. Like, I think we've moved past that. And as athlete, like, I'd be more proud of winning an Olympic medal than looking not like an athlete, I guess. So
yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, well said. I like that. I know the history of swimming, and I've seen kind of the progression of where we're at today, and women do look strong and powerful, and they're swimming that way, and it's a great thing. I think in the past, 30 years ago, we may have looked at women these days and thought, well, they're taking drugs, and because women tended not to look like that back then, but now it's like women can be strong and powerful and very proud about that, and it's like you said, ultimately it's what is needed in the sport to perform at a very high level too.
Yeah, exactly, especially when we're training 30 plus hours in the pool and you're doing weights outside of the pool. Like, we should be proud of how we look, because it just represents the hard work that we put in to
Right.
training. And there's nothing to be ashamed of it.
Yeah. And what about in terms of recovery? You're working so hard in the pool and in the gym. What do you do outside of the pool to recover?
I think sleep is the biggest recovery that anyone can do. So I try to get at least 8 hours of sleep every night. And I also take an hour and a half long nap every day. And on top of that, I foam roll, stretch, use the ice bath, Normatec, get
Mm,
massages, see a physio. So anything that can make my body feel good, I will do it.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like that approach. Now, in terms of your nutrition, do you have somebody that advises or looks after that at all?
We do have a nutritionist on the Hong Kong swim team, and he travels with us to a lot of the big meets. But I've been a professional swimmer for, quite some years now, so I I'm not very strict on my diet because I don't think you should have like a all or nothing mentality when it comes to eating. Like you shouldn't be like I'm only going to eat the cleanest food ever. So I always adopt the everything in moderation method. Um, and yes, I travel a lot to all these different countries with, with all these different food requirements and diets in different countries. But I think as long as I'm eating my carb, protein, vegetables, fruits, then I'm okay because when you're traveling so much, sometimes you don't get to eat the food that you're used to. Like I'm so used to eating rice at home, but when I come to the
Mm,
US or in Europe, you don't eat rice that often, so you have to find substitutes. And our nutritionist, he's very helpful in um, helping me with that if I need any help, and also especially if I do training camps, like especially altitude training camps. We would do blood tests before just to make sure I have all my everything that I need or like my iron level is not low and all that. So we have all these information and data, and if I'm lacking in certain areas, he can help me with that and let me know what I should be eating. I'm not a big supplement person. I never take any supplements or anything like that because I believe in
mm,
getting all the nutrition from food.
mm-hmm.
So he always makes sure I'm getting everything I need, or like if I'm sick, like what I should be doing to, get the vitamin D's and C's and all that.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. I love that aspect of not putting anything in your body that doesn't need to be there. You eat for fuel, and I like that.
Mhm.
Especially this day and age where you get tested so much and there's so much that you have to account for. It's like, well, if you're just eating well, then you can just account for that, and it's very simple, isn't it?
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Talk to us about Tom Rushton. Coach Tom Rushton. You've had success over the past couple of years with him, and things seem to be clicking. What do you like about him? What do you like about the training? Tell us about that whole experience.
Yeah, I've been training with Tom since post Tokyo. And we've accomplished quite a few things together, like the two free short course world record, the two free silver at Worlds this year. And he's a really great coach and he's very understanding. He's probably one of the most chill coaches I've ever worked with. He is okay with anything, really. Like if you want to change the practice so that it suits you, he'll say, "Yeah, go ahead, do that." So he's really good at individualizing and personalizing the workouts. And it did take me a little bit of time to get used to his training because I wasn't used to swimming this much. Um, Especially as like a 200 swimmer, like I wasn't used to swimming 70K a week.
Mm,
But now I kind of like that kind of training sessions. Like in the mornings, we typically swim like long aerobics so that you get the aerobic aspect of it, but you're not working too hard, like your heart rate doesn't go too high. But then in the afternoons, our quality sessions, it's very race specific, and he's very organized and a numbers guy. So then if we do 200 pace work, like there's a focus. You either work on your stroke count or your stroke rate, and he has all these numbers and data. So um, you know what you should be hitting in training, or like why are we doing this? Like he'd explain it really thoroughly,
mm,
so you know what you're doing and what's the focus of each session. And he's just a very nice person to be around. Like we spend a lot of time together on camps like this because we basically have our meals together. We're all at the pool together, and then on the weekends we do different things together. Like we go on hikes or we spend a lot of time with each other, so then, like,
Mm.
you have to make sure you really like your coaches and your teammates, and thank goodness we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, he's also a really good friend, like, if any of one of us are having a rough time, like, we can easily open up to him, and yeah, he's just a really, really good coach.
All right, let's play a little game here as well, where we kind of look ahead to Paris. What do you think the last words Tom says to you are before you walk into the ready room for the 200 freestyle?
Um, Good luck. He always says that. So Tom has this, um ritual, I guess, of walking all his swimmers to the call room, and then
Mhm.
he gives you a very firm handshake and looks you in the eye and says, "Good luck." And he does that every single race, so I think it's gonna be that. Unless he's gonna say something crazy, but otherwise it's gonna be good luck.
Well, then, once you're in the ready room and you're with the 7 other fastest 200 freestylers in the world, about to race for an Olympic gold medal in the 200 freestyle, what's going through your head next year?
I think in an ideal world, I'd be very calm, and I'll just be thinking about my race strategy and how I'm gonna swim the 2 free, and keep my thoughts to a minimum. Like, just don't overthink and yeah.
So when you're in that situation, is it you kind of focusing on your breathing to relax, or is it do you have a word in your head, or is it just how do you stop yourself from thinking?
Yeah, so this happened in Tokyo Olympics. I was in the call room of the 2 free actually finals,
Mm.
and I was just sitting there and I found myself getting a little bit more nervous, so then I was just taking deep breaths and, I think I had 2 words in mind. There were 2 things that I wanted to focus on in that race, so I was thinking about those 2 words. I don't really remember what they are now, but, just thinking of that and not think about anything else, and that really helped to calm myself down.
Mm. Now, that was when you had very few people in the crowd. Next year, the Paris, I'd imagine, is going to be bonkers. It's going to be crazy packed. So, take us out to the block. You're standing behind the block now. You're looking down the pool, and they're about to call you up on the block. What's going through your head at that point?
Um, I think at that point, I like to when I enter the pool, I like to have a quick glance at the, spectators just to, like, absorb the energy and absorb everything that's happening. So either I'll do that when I walk out to the pool or I'll do that right before I stepped on the blocks. And then when I'm, like, really behind the blocks, I think I'm not thinking about anything. I just maybe think about the 2 words or the 1 word that I'm gonna focus on in the race, and yeah, I think at that point, I wanna be as calm as possible.
Mm, right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things I've been talking about recently is front end speed. What is that to you? How do you manage it? How do you approach it? Because obviously, in a 200 especially is like is getting out on the pace, but setting up that back end. But so, what's the front end for you?
Front end speed for me feels like something I always think about is like I'm floating like a cloud. I don't know if it makes sense to anyone else, but in my mind, it makes sense. It's like you feel light on top of the water, but you feel very strong and powerful. So maybe try not to kick too much on your legs, save your legs for the end of the race. But then you have like a nice, strong, powerful catch. So more about like distance per cycle. So then you get like, and you also get into a good rhythm, but it should feel very easy. It shouldn't feel like you're working too hard.
Mm. Now, at this point of the race, the first and second 50s, how are you approaching your oxygen intake?
So in the two free, I have the breathing pattern of breathing every 4-2-4-2.
Mm.
And I've experimented with different breathing patterns before, but this seems to be working the best for me. And yeah, I have to make sure that going into the turn, I have enough air in my lungs so that I can have like a nice long underwater kick, and then I get back into my breathing pattern.
Would you ever notice in a race like this, let's say in Paris, in an Olympic final, would you ever notice something unexpected? Would you notice if somebody was going out extremely fast, or if you were ahead of the pack by more than you thought or imagined you would be? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
When I swim, I actually can't see other people very clearly, especially in a race, because I think I'm just very focused on my own, and I also try not to let anyone else affect me, because I want to swim my own race, and um, it doesn't matter how other people's race strategy is because I know what I have to do. So yeah, no, maybe I've been in that situation before, but I just wasn't aware of it.
Mm, right. What about in the 100? Let's go back to the 100 because I like the 100 myself personally. I'm glad you love the 200. Don't get me wrong, but the 100 is the one that I love the most. And so when it comes down to, look, all the girls are right on top of each other, and you're coming down to the last 20 meters of the race. Let's say, what's going through your head, or what's the objective in the last 20?
To put your head down, don't breathe, and just swim to the wall and put your hand on the wall as fast as possible. I think that's really important, and um, we're trying to breathe less towards the end of the race in the 100. Um, and yeah, like honestly, at that point, you can't really see where everyone else is. So all you have to do is just swim as fast as you can and hope that you win.
Yeah. You're so close to that 51. Is it going to happen soon? You think it'll happen in Doha?
I don't know. I never try to um, give myself like a time goal because I feel
Oh,
like
okay.
sometimes that can be very limiting because
Mm.
I don't know where my limit is. And I I just know there are things that I have to work on, and I'm working on those things, and hopefully that will lead me to a 51. Who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but we'll see.
I think it will. You're working hard towards it, and you've got the experience now.
Mm,
I think it's very, very close. It's going to happen soon.
thank
I-
you.
is what's it going to be like in Doha for you? Like, I don't imagine that all of the best swimmers in the world will be there. Will that be any different for you in terms of your approach to it?
Not really, because to me, it's still a very big meet, and I think it's a really good meet before Paris to get used to swimming such a long 8, 9-day swim meet, and it's like a good rehearsal for Paris. So it doesn't matter who's going and who's not. I'm still going to have the same preparation, and I'll still be focusing on my events. And um, I think we might also have a few relays as well because we want to qualify a few relays for Paris. So I think it'll be a good meet. Like I don't think it's gonna disrupt my training that much. Um, and yeah, I think I'll prepare just like any other world champs.
Mm, yeah. Just a couple more questions, because I'm fascinated in you because you don't give interviews or podcasts very often like this. So I'm while I've got you, I'm gonna take you a little bit further. But in terms of race day, what's your routine in before the prelims? Let's say you're swimming your first swim in Doha. You haven't raced yet. You're obviously anxious and nervous a bit, but what's when you wake up on that first day for the first race, what do you do?
So I wake up, have breakfast, go to the pool. I don't like to go to the pool too early, because I don't like to be sitting around in the pool before warm
Mm,
up and stuff. So I time it so that I like once I get to the pool, I get into the routine of like doing my pre-pool, my dry land, and then go to the pool, put on my suit, go to the call room. Um, and I think I am in a very lucky position where I don't have to go all out in prelims.
mm,
So then even if I don't swim too fast if I don't swim my best in prelims. Most likely it's okay, and I will still make it to either semi or finals. So I think that's great. Um, so even if I'm a little nervous on my first event, which typically it does happen, um, it's okay. And I know that I'm always better in semis and finals, so I don't give myself too much pressure in heats. Like I would treat that as like a warm up, a rehearsal.
Right. In terms of performance, I've always found this fascinating. You know, obviously in the semifinal, you got to get top eight. You want to get a decent lane. You want to swim fast. How do you justify swimming at your best in a semifinal, but also allowing some room to improve in a final? Like you want to be at your best in the final, right? You want your best time to come at that point in time, gives you the best chance to be on the podium. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, sometimes it's a tricky balance to have. I also am someone who doesn't like to go all out unless I really have to, which means
Mm,
if I can swim a little slower in heats and semis, I would do that. And sometimes I
mm,
cut it a little too close and I end up coming 7th or 8th
mm,
in semis. But as long as I make it back, that's all that matters. And to me, lane placement in final doesn't matter too much. I know people, they like to be, in the middle lanes or like in lane 2 or whatever, but to me, as long as I have a lane in a final, then that's okay. And so in semis, typically there are a few things that I want to focus on, but then at the last 15 meters, if I don't have to push too much, then I might hold back a little bit. Um, and as long as I feel like I'm in a good position, in that race, like maybe top 2, then that'll be okay for me. But it's tricky. Sometimes you go too slow or sometimes, there's no such thing as going too fast in semis, but, like, you wanna save your best race for finals, like you said.
right. Um, I've been lucky enough to be around sprinting for many years, and especially on the male side because I was an Olympic finalist myself, and then coach guys to be in that position as well. But so I understand the men's side of it very well, where there's obviously mental games being played, and guys trying to one up each other in certain circumstances and things like that. Is there a thing in the women's scene as well where like women are trying to play mental games with each other?
As far as I know, no. Everyone is really, really nice, and in the call room, you have people who like to talk to other people, and some people are a little bit more quiet, but in general, everyone is so nice, which is which is a hard thing because sometimes if your competitors beat you, you like, I don't know, you wish that they're a bad person so you can hate them, but no, like everyone is really, really nice, and which is good. Like you want to have a healthy competitive environment, not like a toxic one. So
Mm,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I can see that too. But there's a enough competitiveness within everybody to know that you still want to win. Everybody wants to win, right? And there's only one winner generally. So uh, how are you? How are you going to take that next step? I mean, you've won a couple of silvers now at the Olympics. How do you get to that next step of winning the gold, you think?
I think I think I just have to focus on myself and not think too much about other people and how they're training, what they're doing, because at the end of the day, I can't control what everyone else is doing. And I think if, as long as I'm focusing on the things that I need to do, and by the time I arrive to Paris, I'm in a good mental state, I'm fresh, I'm ready to go, and I've done enough work where I am very confident in myself, then it's going to happen. And even if it doesn't happen, which hopefully it will happen, but as long as I'm enjoying this whole journey, the whole process, and I'm liking what I'm doing in the next 8 months, I think I just want to arrive in Paris with no regrets and just know that I've done everything I possibly can, and hope that it's gonna happen.
Is that hard though to focus on yourself, like in this day and age of social media where people are posting things left and right, or even if they're not doing it themselves, someone like me's out there posting stuff. Is it hard to stay away from what your competitors are doing and wanting to keep an eye on that or even paying attention to that?
I try not to go on social media too much because I think it's can be very distracting.
Mm,
And I don't know, I think it affects me a little too much sometimes. From time to time, I'll look at the results of swim meets and see how they're doing, but I'm not trying to find out what they do every day in training or like how fast they're going in practice because
mm,
we're all very different swimmers. Even if we do the same workout, we will have different results. So I don't think there's a point in figuring out exactly what they're doing and how fast they're going because it's nice to like learn from other people, but I don't need to, do like a study exactly
mm,
what they're doing.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's I know what are distractions and what are not, and I try to stay away from distractions and just yeah, focus on myself.
Well, listen, Siobhan, you're in a great place. I think you're just coming into some of the best swimming in your career, in your life over the next few years. I can see some really big things in your future, just the way that you've set it up. I mean, you're at a peak right now, and you're doing some really good stuff. So keep it up. Good luck with everything, and thank you for spending some time with us today, sharing a little bit. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. You too.